Welcome to the College Knowledge Podcast, sponsored by the College Planning Network and Paradigm Financial Group. Whether you're searching for that right fit college, applying to college, or figuring out how you're going to afford it all, you're in the right place. You'll hear from deans, admissions counselors, student athletes, and scholars from esteemed universities and colleges around the country. We'll dig deep to uncover their insight and unique experiences. So whether you're a student gearing up for college or a parent with college-bound kids, sit back, relax, and listen. Like you, we have lots of questions. Our guests have the answers, and we're excited to share them with you. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to College Knowledge. I'm your co-host, Dave Kozak, Dave the CEO.
And I'm Joe Kerns, the other co-host, also known as Joe the College Pro. Excited to be with you as always, Dave. We got an interesting conversation, I think, on the horizon with our guest today.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some insight on things that parents specifically don't know that they need to pay attention to, and probably good conversation. So without further ado, we have the distinguished pleasure of interviewing the CEO of CampusESP. Did I get all that right?
You got that correct. Good job, Dave.
Okay. Hey, we're working on it here.
Yeah.
And I don't know that everybody knows what CampusESP is. And I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce Dave. Dave Becker is the CEO of CampusESP. Dave, welcome to the show. Give us a little insight. What is CampusESP? How did you get into the role? How did you develop the technology, the platform, and into the college world?
I'm the CEO and co-founder of CampusESP. We're a technology company that helps colleges engage with parents and families. So if you're a parent and you're a parent of a high school student looking at colleges, you might be getting some emails that provide insight and glimpses into the colleges your student's applying to. And a lot of that technology is powered by CampusESP. We work with 450 colleges in the US, and generally each year about 5 million families get some sort of engagement, whether it's through a portal or through email or text messaging using CampusESP. I can talk about the technology piece, but I can also talk about it as a parent of twins who are sophomores in college. So I also have experience being a college parent myself. When I started CampusESP, my kids were, I guess, 9 years old. Now they're 19. So I've been through it. One of my kids is at a school using my software, and the other is at a school not using my software. So I've got a really interesting view there. And then as far as where did this all come about? Before CampusESP, I was actually an executive at a company called Ellucian, which is also called SunGuard and SCT. And they make the student information systems out there for about 50% of the colleges in the US. And I was in charge of product for a product called Banner. Then when I took my next step, like my midlife crisis, into entrepreneurship, I realized I wanted to try to help colleges engage with students more efficiently. And some schools that I talked to very early on, they were like, you know what? All schools are doing stuff with students already, but many schools are trying to figure out how to engage with parents. And parent involvement has increased so much over the last few years. So for a lot of parents who are confused and frustrated, or I guess I'll double down on the confused part, schools are also that way. They're not sure how to always engage. So we created a company that helps colleges and universities get information to parents that they need to better support their students.
I got it. When you say information to parents, what does that mean? Does that mean what your kid had for lunch today? Does that mean how much money they're spending? Does it mean what their grades are? Did they hand in their homework? What does information mean?
Financially, it is super confusing. But there's always going to be the parents that are maybe a little too involved, and we can talk about those involvement levels and where it's coming from. But I always go back to financial aid. So if you're a parent of a high school student, it's super confusing, especially when all of a sudden the FAFSA comes out and you're like, okay, wow, this got real. And then the admit letters come out, the cost is staring you in the face. And there's no way that your kid understands what $10,000 is, $60,000. They're just not there. So they really look to parents as a partner. And if you're not informed, if you don't know how to help your student could make a bad decision about where to go to college. Even once they enroll, you think you're going to be able to back off as a parent, but you're still engaged, because as much as it's nice to hear oh, you have to let your students fail and find their way, it's really expensive. So you stay involved as a parent. So a lot of schools will still engage with parents and communicate with parents because they want your student to succeed as well. So they want to get information to parents and families to support retention, which is moving from first year to second year, and graduation rates. So these schools are really motivated to connect with parents and families, and we provide the technology platform to help scale those efforts.
So the gripe my father always had was,
this is going to be good.
The only thing he ever got from my college was the bill. will. And we're going to take this in a direction now because I already feel it coming. The parent engagement is, I think, necessary to some extent. Obviously, parents overengage at the same time, and don't let the kid fail kind of thing happens. And it can have devastating consequences to the development of the professional, right? In terms of information that schools willingly give to parents versus information they don't willingly give to parents, talk through what a parent should expect to get from a school, and then what your technology enables them to get from a school, and the sort of development there.
There's all different options. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. There's also this thing called FERPA hanging out there, which I touch on as well, which is Family Education Rights Privacy Act, which is who's in control of the information, whether it's the parent, generally when they're under 18, or whether it's the student when they are over 18. But we can drill into that. First off, I would also say that parents are going to be more involved, whether you like it or not. And the reason is pretty obvious, I think, when you really take a step back. And there's a couple of reasons for it. Number one, technology, Dave, is a lot different than when you went to school.
Yeah.
So parents are more engaged. They are often like tracking where their student is on campus, even in college. Secondly, in high school, parents are repeatedly told parent engagement. It is so crucial to student success. So as a parent, all of a sudden, you're going to let your student go to college, maybe participate in the cost of that education, and then just back off. Doesn't happen. You're used to it. You're used to that level of engagement and involvement. I will also say that students want their parents to be engaged. That's a completely different dynamic too. 4 out of 10 college students communicate with their parents daily. So that is a big shift, shift out there. But the biggest thing is the cost of education has gone up so much from when you went to school and when I went to school. And so I really believe the cost of education is what's driving that parent involvement. One stat that I always throw out there is when I founded CampusESP 10 years ago, we surveyed 8,000 families, and about 41% of them said that they wanted weekly updates from their students' college or university. Whether you think it's right or not, 41% said that they wanted weekly updates. Today, that number is over 70%. And it's because the cost of education keeps going up, but also there's like mental health crisis out there as well. And just parents want to be involved and they want to support the student.
Yeah.
So then it goes to one other thing here, which is like how much support is the right support, right? And how much is too much?
Yeah.
It's different for every single family. For parents of a first generation college student, they don't always know what they don't know. If you went to college yourself and you have a student, you probably have some ideas of what a bursar is, what a registrar is. First generation families don't necessarily know that. A lot of the content that CampusESP provides that gets sent out through the schools is publicly available about financial aid from the Department of Education or from the school, but it's on different pages on the website and it's impossible to find. So in a lot of ways, we just take the information that's already out there and we just make it more discoverable for the parents, but also provide it to parents and families when they need it most. What stage is your student at? Are they visiting schools? Are they applying to schools? Let's provide parents information specific to that stage that the student's at. And then once the student does enroll, then FERPA comes into play. Parents might want more detailed information, but we still provide a mechanism where the student can control the access that they provide to parents. So there's just lots of different flavors of it. I will say overall, though, the cost of education has gone up so much. I really think that's what's driving the involvement, sometimes over-involvement, but most times appropriate involvement for families in student education.
It's interesting. I never thought about, I experience it now with my oldest. I have 4 kids, by the way, Dave, and mine are 13 and younger. I know the locate my on the iPhone, locate me, and then just sort of the rhythm of communication. I could see how it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy when they get to college from the way it used to be. Like my dad, he literally still gripes about the fact that he didn't know anything about my grades or whatever. He just knew that when the bill came, he either write the check and he's enrolled or not. And he just relied on me to pass that information. And I wasn't as maybe forthright with school information back then because I didn't have to be. But I get emails from each of my kids' teachers on a weekly basis on what they're doing, what they're working on. We've got this school Schoology, we've got this other thing, we've got all these different platforms that we log into to figure out what you're supposed to do. It's overwhelming in my eyes. Like, get out there and do your best, and hopefully you learn something. And if you fall down, just pick yourself back up. But that's probably because I have 4 kids and I can't hold their hand through everything. But
I also want to touch, I mean, again, I have similar,
Yeah.
with the Schoology, and like my oldest is in 7th grade right now, but check his grades and things like that. But if I was paying 20, 30 grand a year for that school, it's probably a little bit of a different how often I check that,
There are 2 people that we struggle with to get to understand the concept. Number one, it's like grandparents that maybe remember a time when not everybody was checking their phone. And so they're dead set against over involvement, Dave. So kind of like where you're at.
Yeah.
And the other segment are parents that have kids in middle school because they think they are going to disengage in high school. But what you're going to find is when your kids go to these college fairs and start looking at all the places they can apply. And like when we applied, I applied to 2 schools. They're now applying to 15 schools. And if you look at the data, 97% of parents are involved in the student's application process. So when you get there as a parent, you'll understand it more. And I know people who are listening to this podcast are probably shaking their head, yes, who are going through that application process, which is you just can't have your student sign up for $20,000 in debt. They do not understand the ROI. They need help. They get frustrated more easily. Maybe we were more self-sufficient back in the day. I don't know. I feel like they're better at multitasking than we are, but they get frustrated easily. And the world's more complicated now. It's interesting, Joe, like when your kids get there, you'll see whether or not that shifts. Generally, it shifts for most people. And they come back to me and they're like, yeah, you were right. It's crazy. The FAFSA is confusing. Debt is confusing. And it's getting more difficult too with some of the recent changes with the government and with Parent Plus loans and things like that. It's just driving more and more pressure on the student and their families.
Points well taken. And looking retrospectively back on my dad, yeah, he was spending a pretty penny. He probably should have had more information on what was going on. You're spending $80,000, $90,000 a year on an education. I would imagine you want to know some stuff.
Would want the kids to have the independent side, but essentially, I mean, I would look at it and say, okay, the semester grades. I just need to make sure if you're not doing well, okay, you're not going back. I'm not spending the money.
And I have a different philosophy on this, Dave, and I'd like your take because you're in the know here. I look at it as my role, and this is what I tell parents when I meet with them. I help kids get into college all over the country. We help their families figure out how to pay for it. Like, it's what we do for a living. And I tell the parents, like, your child doesn't have the sort of decision-making capability at that age to go through the process the right way. So your role in this is to be the manager of the process, not the technician that's doing the work, but making sure that, like bumper bowling, you make sure that you don't bounce too far and you don't go off the rails into the gutter. But to me, it's like my job's the manager. Did you get that essay done? Did you submit that application? Did you let someone read it? Did I review it? Whatever it may be. Like, that's sort of the role I feel the parent should take. I don't think that's the role the parent is taking right now.
But I also think that there's a lot of parents that do these are the schools you need to apply to because they're on U.S. News top rankings. I think that they're saying if you're going to go to college, you have to do it in one of these majors.
Yeah.
I do hear that a lot as far as I think parents, I don't want to say like having high expectations, but again, the game has changed. As Dave, you said, like it is very different from when we went to school, the amount of information that can be gathered, right? Like I think it's with technology and just the different platforms that exist and being able to know what potential majors and what classes you already have to take to pursue those majors. And, it's not engineer, lawyer, doctor, right? Like there were certain pathways that I think a lot of parents feel that it's this linear path. This is what you're going to do versus what are the options and how do you weave your way to pursue and again, thrive is ultimately where I think sometimes I see parents miss the mark on when they overstep a little bit in the college app. What do you think, Dave? I mean, what do you see from the side of the application for the high school student?
So one of our earliest customers is Penn State University. The person in charge of parent programs there, her name's Cindy Hill. She gave me this great metaphor, which I always use, which is that of a tandem bike. And when the parent and the student are in high school, it's really the parent who's at the front of the tandem bike, right? Steering, where are you going? What do you need to do? And of course, you want the student pedaling behind you, but then that switches once they go to college. You want the student driving the bike, right? And the parent is pedaling and they become the nudger in many ways to keep the student moving forward. We like to say at CampusESP that we nudge the nudgers. And it's a real thing. It's a great metaphor. At some point, whether whether it's in 12th grade or freshman year or maybe earlier, every family, every student's different. They switch places on the bike, and that's natural. When they don't switch places on the bike, that is an uncomfortable situation for everybody. And it does exist out there. I think it's a lot more talked about than what is really happening out there. It's clickbait, right? You talk about helicopter parents, snowplow parents, tiger parents, all these different things. And it's fun to talk about, but it's not really what we see out there. Joe, double clicking in one of the things you said, which is you want to see their grades. So we do have the capacity in Campus ESP where a student can decide what aspects of their academic and financial record they can share with their families. The most rejected request of parents of their students are grades, as you would expect, and that is 10%. So 90% of students are open to sharing the grades. But I can tell you that is not really that interesting to us at Campus ESP. When the student shares financial aid, holds, and student status changes with their parents, the student has higher graduation rates. And the reason why is if the student, let's say they drop a class, it affects their financial aid, and the financial aid's office is trying to reach out to the student, but the student just ignoring it. Then when the parent gets the bill and they're like, where'd all the financial aid go? It's too late to solve the problem. So by getting that information earlier to the parent, you can have a positive impact on student retention and graduation. I don't get too excited about sharing grades in college. I kind of agree with probably where you guys are at, which is the student needs to figure it out. But when it comes to financial aid matters, holds, and student status changes, sometimes behavioral issues too, like the parent can help the student get back on track sooner. That's where I think a lot of our positive results come from, which is we don't want to overshare information, but if we can help the student succeed, then it's in everybody's best interest to figure that out.
Yeah, and it's always, if you can triage a situation prior to it festering and becoming inoperable, basically, just because the parent's in the know and can at least go back. So I look at it this way, like you filter information, deliver to parents so parents can continue to manage from afar, essentially. Forget the helicopter, lawnmower, whatever you want. It's the idea of, I'm investing money. This is your future. I'm not going to let you, again, I go back to bumper bowling. I'm not going to let you hit the gutter. I'll let you bounce off it once or twice, but if we're headed in that direction, it sounds like you guys do a nice job of enabling people to get away from that, or at least intervene in an appropriate manner.
If you think about their student as an investment, probably the biggest investment they're going to make. Think about maybe you have a pension or 401k. If you weren't getting regular updates on that, and then you look at the news and you see the stock market tanking, you're probably going to call up and be like, what does this mean for me? So if you can give parents and families regular updates that are appropriate for what they're looking for and what the student wants to share, it decreases the phone calls to the schools. The parents can actually back off because they know if something is going to derail their student, go into the gutter, past the bumpers, and that the school is going to communicate that to the parent so the parent can at least help the student make a decision, then it starts making sense. There's always going to be these fun stories of parents showing up. What was the movie with Rodney Dangerfield? I think it was like Back to School. Those are fun to talk about, but 80-90% of the parents just want to make sure their student stays on track.
As far as clickbait and the helicopter parent and things like that we hear in the noise, obviously we're one that's always trying to dumb down the noise because of everything that's out there. We try and tell parents, be careful what you're reading. But an interesting survey that we've talked about a couple times came up that 70% of current college graduates are taking a parent with them to their job interview, and 55% have had a parent talk to a hiring manager. It sounds insane, and I think everybody always has the same reaction. What? That can't be true. But is it the overbearing parent that is responsible for that, or is it something where the student has their parent, where the cord has yet to be cut, and you're 21, 22 years old, and they're still relying on their parents to solve problems? Like that independent piece hasn't come out yet, but it hasn't come across.
I'd like to see the study. Did we interview like 15 people and they all happen to have the same calamity? Like that sounds absolutely bizarre.
I don't know where this study's coming from. I do not believe it, but let's say that whatever the percentage is, whether it's 70% or 7% or 1%, it's too high, right? So let me switch hats to like a person who owns a business, runs a business, and I would say about 20-25% of the people we hire are right out of college.
Okay.
And similarly, about 20 to 25% of people move to Philadelphia, where we're based, to take that job. And it's tough to get people to move to Philadelphia sometimes. We don't always have the best luck at sports. It's really tough sometimes. I will tell you, I've never had a parent involved in any interview. I don't know where that study is coming from. However, I have had at least half of their parents come and visit after a year of working at Campus ESP because the student is really proud of what they're doing and the parent is really proud of what they're doing, and they stay more connected maybe than previous generations. I don't know. But yeah, the number of times that parents come in and they're like, my colleague, my employee's like saying, hey, I'd love to introduce you to Dave Becker, and I have a chance to meet with them. I find that like amazing and really cool. But there's a connection, there's a pride, there's less of a just rub dirt on it. You got a boo-boo, let's just rub dirt on it and move forward. Like the parents really are more involved. I think a lot of it comes down to the phone and access to information. But yeah, they're definitely more involved. I just don't know. I just don't think they're in the interviews 70% of the time.
It was a survey done by resumetemplates.com. They surveyed 831 Gen Z adults who work full-time. 31% said they had a parent write their resume. 77 brought them to an interview. 53 had a parent speak to the hiring manager on their behalf. 45 have a parent talk to their current manager. 73 have parents help complete work assignments. And 57 brought a parent to their current workplace.
57%, that's right in line with what I've seen. I don't believe the interview, though. Can the parents just go get coffee together afterwards?
It's a pool of 831 students. So where's that pool coming from? I didn't make the numbers up. It was an actual survey study done. Again, the clickbait, everybody jumped on it. It's on Fortune, Forbes, like everybody hit on that once that survey was released.
One thing that I am seeing out there is like return on investment. Parents are very involved in return on investment, right? So when you're deciding what school to go to, like you pull out a spreadsheet and you're like, okay, here's like maybe your earnings, your job, that kind of thing, what you're going to get from it. Here's the cost of education. I know from our work and our research at Campus ESP that return on investment is really big for parents, probably more so than for students, although it's increasing as well for students. So what is return on investment? It's a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but for families, it is about getting a job. I think that's probably the bigger message, which is if you're a college, you want to get information about what's the return on investment that a parent or a student gets. If you're a student or a parent, you want to make sure that you can easily find that and make it comparable between the different options that you're looking at.
I wanted to shift gears a little bit for the high school families. As far as Campus ESP, we're huge on the social fit, academic fit, financial fit, right? And really finding that campus that a student can thrive. I've changed my verbiage recently and saying the dream school is not necessarily what we always think it is with the name, right? Focus on fit over fame, but it's what school you're going to be able to pursue your dream rather than a dream school. If you can lay out like, hey, this is what I would want my college experience to be before you even think about college, like write it out, the perfect thing. Okay, now can you find a school that's like that? Is kind of where I would go. But does Campus ESP assist high school students in figuring out a little bit more about that social aspect or that academic aspect, something that can assist in building a good school list or what schools may be a fit or not for them?
When we engage with parents of high school students, it's usually the college paying for it. So it becomes like a marketing engine for them. And yeah, I believe in everything you're saying, Joe, around like social, emotional, where they fit in. The college or university still has to build that into our platform to get it across to parents and families. They're the ones that pay us. So that's kind of like what's driving a lot of the content that parents see. Having said that, there's this other piece of Campus ESP. We call it the Campus ESP Content Network. And we take content from the Department of Education and other trusted sources, I think probably some of your other guests, and they write that content into our central kind of database, and it goes out to all of our colleges. So if a parent logs into a platform, they're seeing information about the college or university that their student is looking at, but they're also seeing general content about the FAFSA, how to support their student. So we kind of stand in both places, but it's not one place where you go to campusesp.com and then you just select the schools and it puts it all together. Each of the schools has their own Campus ESP instance and newsletter and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So it's something I want to tap on that was subtle that you said, but I think is necessary for parents and families to understand is that in high school, the college environment, you are a marketed consumer, right? So the job of the institution is to make itself attractive to you, right? That is the job. They are trying to attract students. Their business is getting students to come to their school. And so if you understand A, that it's a business, and then B, that's their role, now you can dig into the true information, right? I think we get a lot of people that think that higher education is a holier than thou environment. And I'm not picking on higher education. The job is a necessary job. Educating people is a very important thing, but they have to pull yield rates. They have to get a certain number of students. They have to operate, their budgets have to line up. They have to be equal. And I love the way you put it is like you're a marketing engine that they can distribute information through. I'm not saying that the information that schools distribute is purely like clickbait marketing. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that their job is to make it attractive. So you need to, oh, this school looks good. What's the next step you take? What's the thing after the thing that you do? We always talk in sports about the play after the play. What's the play after play? Particularly, I'm a big baseball guy, and you find a campus, you find a school, it hits those boxes for you. Man, that looks really cool. That social, that the emotional, that now let's dig in, go do the visit, engage heavily, do your own research as it matters to you. And I think that is one of the things that, because there is so much information anymore and so many channels, that it gets almost overwhelming for people.
Yeah. As a college parent of twins that just went through it, it was very overwhelming. Again, when I applied to colleges when I was a lot younger, there were 2 schools, and I forget how many they applied to, probably around 12 to 15. I think that's the norm right now. And then we visited schools. And then as the decision were coming in, we were like, let's look at this one. We didn't get into this one. And we were running around and checking out virtual tours. Like, I think the advice I would have, because some of my family members are going through this now, there's the admission process. Like, they're the kind of the salespeople, not in a bad way. They're trying to connect their solution to your problem. Your student wants to find the right fit. They have solutions. But you go on these prepackaged tours, and maybe the student who's giving the tour is amazing. It's like, oh, I want my kid to be friends with them. But that's the sales pitch. I got a lot more value out of going to the school within the university or just walking around. So if you're at the university, going to a specific college or a specific department, just opening up the door and saying, hey, can I talk to you? Are you a professor? And just getting a feel for the school that way. So almost like if the college is trying to put you on the highway, trying to go off-road a little bit and see what's in the different towns that you're just flying by. I think that was great because you're trying to find your people. The kids are trying to find their people. And if you're on a tour, that's not necessarily your people. That's just the people who are on the tour. I definitely think trying to do a little bit more than just showing up for the tour, just reading the materials, that will give you a better feel for the fit, in my opinion.
Yeah. The other thing I always tell parents is if you do the tour, right, and then all of a sudden you go to the acceptance students day, when you get to your first week of classes, you're going to wonder where the school went that you visited on the acceptance students day. Like, the red carpet is rolled out. It is never going to look better than it does on that day. And all of a sudden, I still remember that when I was like, where did all that stuff go? This isn't the same place. I remember that. I've had parents really have multiple success stories on figuring out like, hey, I don't think that's really the school for me. It's just the unannounced visit. Just go to campus, go eat lunch, go talk to students, go sit in a class, just go. And like you're saying, go off road. It's not, but you kind of have a lay of the land after a tour. Now just visit for a day. You got down to 2 schools, do an unannounced visit to each one of them and see which one really sticks out to you. What were the pros and the cons from then just you being there as a potential student? This is what every day is going to be like for the next 4 years. How did it feel? And it's not somebody holding your hand. That's the building. This is that. And I've had some really good parents tell me that was the greatest thing because we realized this and this. We realized the library was a mile and a half down the road from the dorm that she'd be staying at, and there's no street lights. My daughter, if she's at the library at 11 o'clock, she immediately was like, oh, I didn't realize that. Never would have known it before just going and doing that off-road thing. So you find those little things that really matter. I love the idea of just talking to people too. Dave's college story, it's the reason he ended up choosing where he was because of that, opening the door and talking to a professor.
I knocked on a threshold at F&M, and he happened to be the chair of the economics department. And I was like, hey, I'm a prospective student. Can I ask you a question? He went over, he grabbed a stack of papers off a chair. He said, sit down. And we talked for a half hour just on the conversation just rolled. And it was like, okay. I always felt that if I could talk to someone, I can solve problems. So if my grades are in a situation or if I need a favor or help, my use of language is my best attribute. So I got to be able to talk.
You're a stand-up philosopher.
Yeah, perfect.
It definitely, on the college tours that I went on, the parents are asking most of the questions. Some of the questions are horribly like weird. And I remember one one parent, she asked for her kid, do you have hopefully I don't offend anybody with this, but like, do you have a circus arts program? What is a circus art? I don't even know what that is. And I'm sure the kid was like, gosh, I cannot believe my parents asking this on the tour. You should definitely go on the tour, I think, because it gives you a feel for campus. But then, once you get a feel for campus, almost like if you go on vacation somewhere and you take a tour, then you want to just see what's the rest of the scene out there and just walking around. And I do think it surprises people how accessible many professors and administrators are. You can literally just open a door or sneak in behind the student and then just go to the main office and be like, we're considering this school. I'd love to just talk with somebody, and they will make time for you. The whole signing up for a visit and like trying to find time for that. I don't know. Not to go too rogue, but if they don't have space for you in the official visit, I would still go, because they're not going to turn you away, and you're going to get some candid moments about how they handle the situation too. I just showed up here, and how welcoming is the school for real? I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I think you don't have to follow the normal path.
So just to give everybody a sort of final lay of the land, and we're winding down here, CampusESP is a communication platform for colleges and universities to give very real transparency to parents while their kids are enrolled in higher ed. Is that a fair statement?
It can start before they're enrolled.
Okay.
So it's for colleges will engage with prospective families so that they can increase their enrollment. They will engage with families of current students to support graduation and retention. And there's even some schools that will engage with families to focus on giving as well. So it's across the board. It just depends on what the school's trying to achieve.
All right. The circus art program. Okay. Maybe I read into this the wrong way.
Oh, God.
I love that question, because if the college says, yes, we do, great. We're out. We're going somewhere else. I don't want to go to a school that has a circus art program.
So you're saying it's a trick question?
I just thought about it like, hey, do you have underwater basket weaving as a major? Great. We're going somewhere else. What if you're teaching something that is not going to be to push students into the right direction? I don't know. Maybe it was that crazy question where it's like, yeah, we have that program. It's like, great. Like, this is not the school for us. I don't know. That was how I read into that. I'm like, would somebody, I don't know, whatever.
It definitely was a turnoff. We were like internal eye roll. So there's some truth to that, definitely.
The other side of it, obviously, I mean, the admission side of colleges, we've talked about the business side, but as technology is expanding, the just grades and SAT scores, there are so many other factors now that come into play, and analytics and just the data gathering that comes on. We know for a fact that schools have told us, like, yes, we track if there's an email sent and if you click on the link to show what level of interest you may have with our institution. Is part of what Campus ESP, is there anything that is tracked that goes to an admissions office that we can tell parents, like, look, if you're on this at the portal and like they know that you're on the portal, and if you're searching around, I know it might be a crazy question, but any insight on that side of things?
All schools have the capability to track all of that information, and they're trying to assess interest, right? Because at the end of the day, they want to have rates that show some level of selectivity with the school.
Yep.
On the parent side, if you go into one of the portals, they are tracking that. To the extent that they're tracking it, it depends on the school. Some schools are really good with data. Other schools say they are. Some schools are just not using it at all. I will say one interesting point of data with Campus ESP is if the parent registers for our portal as their student is looking and considering colleges, their student is 9 to 11 times more likely to enroll at that school. So that likelihood to enroll, first off, it is a crazy stat, which is like the more engaged a parent is at a specific school, the more likely is the student is to enroll. Colleges are dying for that information because they're trying to make decisions on their end. Not only do they want to get students to enroll, they want to make sure that they don't over-enroll so that there's 6 kids in a dorm room. So they're really trying to be scientific about it as well. They have to think about how many students are applying, how many students they want to accept, and then how many can they actually enroll, even if they wanted to enroll everybody. So the point being is there's data collected at every single step in that process. If you're a parent who is trying to make sure the student has the best chances of admission, I would say, yeah, I would check all the boxes so that the schools have the data. I think it's a good way to indicate interest. It depends on the schools about whether or not they use it all.
That circles all the way back around to where we started. That's wild. The statistic that you threw out from your side, which is an engaged parent increases probability an enrolled student, which it all makes sense now. If the parent's there and there's a high probability they're going to open the checkbook, right? Dollars and cents. It comes down to dollars and cents at the end of the day. Can you afford to pay? Is it the right school for you? And if there's an indication from the school that the dollars and cents make sense for the parent, it's easier to say yes to the student, regardless, and not regardless of their academics, but I could see that now. So
yeah, just a simple fact of saying one of our kids comes up to us and says, "This is where I want to go to school," and you're like, "I haven't even heard you talk about that yet. What if I know nothing about it? Am I really going to write that check to the school unless they say it's free?"
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Like the parents have to know a little bit more.
To me, that is a takeaway that is, without an engaged parent, you are diminishing the probability of acceptance. And I'm not throwing a statistic to it. I'm not throwing anything out there that says, but that is a crazy takeaway to realize you could have best student in the world, kid does everything by themselves, self-starter, self-everything. Parent just lets the kid run. Parent doesn't engage in the process at all. And there's risk in that. Crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Dave, thank you. Tremendous. I love what you're doing. I love the work you're doing. I love the transparency and the efforts to bring information to parents. That's our message in this whole thing. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate the conversation.
All right, everybody. It's been College Knowledge with CEO of Campus ESP, Mr. Dave Becker.